I never expected a pocket dial to change my entire life. The buzzing phone on my kitchen counter showed my sister Amber's name, but when I answered with a cheerful hello, nobody responded. I was about to hang up when I heard my mother's voice in the background, clear as day. I think we should ask Jodie for $250 more each month for rent. With her new promotion, she won't notice. The casual way she said it stopped me cold. My brother Tyler laughed loudly. Yeah, she's so obsessed with being the family hero, she'll probably offer $300. More laughter. My father chimed in. Our golden goose won't even blink. I stood, frozen phone clutched against my ear as my entire family continued insulting the daughter who had been paying all their bills for years. In that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. I stayed silent, listened, and quietly decided to let their next payment bounce. Growing up in Oak Ridge, Pennsylvania, population 8,000, meant everyone knew each other's business. My family was considered the picture of American wholesomeness. Mom taught third grade at the local elementary school, Dad worked construction, and us 3 kids were always involved in community events. We weren't rich, but we got by comfortably enough in our modest 3-bedroom home on Maple Street. That all changed when I was 25. Dad fell from scaffolding at a construction site, damaging his back severely enough that he couldn't work full-time anymore. Workers' compensation helped initially, but it wasn't enough to maintain their lifestyle. Mom had to reduce her teaching hours to care for Dad, further straining their finances. The medical bills piled up faster than they could manage. By then, I had graduated college and landed an entry-level position at a marketing firm in Philadelphia, about 2 hours away. I wasn't making much, but when Mom called crying about potentially losing the family home, I didn't hesitate. I set up automatic transfers for their mortgage payment and started sending monthly checks to cover utilities. It's just temporary, Mom had assured me, until your father gets back on his feet. 7 years later, at 32, I was still paying. Not just the mortgage either, but property taxes, car insurance. For 3 vehicles, cell phone bills, for the entire family, and a monthly stipend they called emergency funds. The temporary arrangement had become permanent, and with each passing year, the financial burden grew heavier. Meanwhile, I postponed my own dreams. The backpacking trip through Europe I'd planned since college remained just a Pinterest board. I lived in a cramped 1-bedroom apartment to keep my expenses low. When friends upgraded to luxury cars, I kept driving my reliable 10-year-old Honda. Every raise and bonus went straight to my family's increasing needs. Jodie's so good with money, Mom would tell relatives. She's thriving in the city. What she didn't mention was that nearly 40% of my income went directly to supporting them. 2 weeks ago, I received a significant promotion to senior marketing director with a 30% salary increase. I called my parents immediately, hoping they'd finally express pride in my accomplishments. That's nice, honey, Mom had said distractedly. Listen, Tyler's washing machine broke down. Can you send an extra $300 this month? I agreed without hesitation, as always. Then came the accidental call that changed everything. Amber must have sat on her phone during the weekly Sunday dinner I missed due to a work event. I was preparing a simple pasta dinner in my apartment when my phone lit up with her name. I answered cheerfully. Hey, Amber, what's up? No response came, just muffled background noise. I was about to hang up when I heard my mother's voice crystal clear through the speaker. I think we should ask Jodie for $250 more each month for rent. With her new promotion, she won't notice. My stomach dropped as I realized they didn't know I was listening. For the first time, I was hearing what my family really thought about me, and it was nothing like what they said to my face. Do you think that's pushing it? My father asked, though I detected no actual concern in his voice. Please, my mother scoffed. She's so desperate to be needed. Remember last Christmas when we mentioned the roof might need repairs? She sent $5,000 the next day without even asking for an estimate. Yeah, Tyler added. She didn't even question why Dad needed a new fishing gear right after. What a sucker. The pasta water boiled over on my stove, but I couldn't move. Their words burned worse than any spilled water could. To Jodie, Amber's voice called out mockingly. Our favorite ATM with legs? The clink of glasses and raucous laughter followed. I sank to my kitchen floor, phone still pressed to my ear, as my entire understanding of my family relationship crumbled around me. The laughter eventually subsided, but the conversation continued. I remained frozen on my kitchen floor, unable to hang up, as each new revelation cut deeper than the last. So, what should we tell her this time? Tyler asked. Roof leak again, property tax increase. No, we've used those recently, my mother replied thoughtfully. I was thinking of saying the homeowner's insurance went up dramatically. You know how she never questions anything related to the house. My father chuckled. She's so worried about us losing the family home, she'd probably pay double if we asked. Speaking of which, Tyler continued, I've been thinking about quitting my job at the warehouse. The hours are killing my back, and with Jodie's promotion, she can cover my car payment too, right? Don't be greedy, son, my father said, though his tone held more amusement than admonishment. We have to be strategic about these things. Says the man who's been playing up his back injury for 3 extra years, my mother teased. Remember when Dr. Phillips cleared you for light work back in 2022? My breath caught. Dad had been telling me his doctors repeatedly extended his work restrictions. I'd been sending extra money for specialized treatments not covered by insurance. Hey, if Jodie wants to believe I'm still an invalid, who am I to correct her? Dad laughed. Besides, my disability check plus what she sends means I'm making more now than when I was working construction. At least you have an actual injury, Amber interjected. I've been working full-time at the salon for 8 months, while telling Jodie I can't find anything but part-time work. Well, she's never around to notice, is she? My mother replied. Too busy with her important city career to visit more than holidays and the occasional Sunday dinner. Thank God for that, Tyler said. Can you imagine if she knew about the boat? Or Mom's kitchen remodel last spring, Amber added. Or the fact that Grandma Jenkins left each of us $10,000 in her will, my mother said casually. I gasped aloud. Grandma Jenkins had passed away 18 months ago. I'd been told repeatedly that she'd left everything to her church, with just small, sentimental items for the family. Do you ever feel bad? A new voice asked. It took me a moment to recognize it as Tyler's wife, Meg. She works really hard for her money. Oh, please, my mother dismissed her. Jodie makes more in a month than most people in this town see in 3. Besides, she needs to feel needed. We're doing her a favor. Plus, she's got no life anyway, Amber added. No husband, no kids, not even a serious boyfriend since David 5 years ago. What else is she going to spend her money on? The knife twisted further. My family knew exactly why my relationship with David ended. He couldn't understand why so much of my income went to my family rather than building our future together. I saw her latest Instagram post about wanting to take some photography classes, Tyler said. Maybe we should develop sudden interests in photography too. More laughter followed. Hey, speaking of money, my father interjected. Did I tell you guys the Hendersons asked how we afforded that cruise last summer? I told them Jodie's the one always asking us for loans. My family erupted in laughter again. I felt physically ill. Not only were they taking advantage of me financially, but they were also portraying me as the burden to others in our hometown. Oh, that's nothing, my mother said through giggles. The church fundraising committee was asking about potential donors, and I told them not to bother with Jodie because she's drowning in credit card debt. Is she really? Meg asked, sounding concerned. Of course not, my mother replied dismissively. That girl saves every penny she doesn't send us. But I can't have them asking her for donations when that money should be coming to us. You're so smart, Mom, Amber said admiringly. Remember when you convinced her to send extra for my emergency dental surgery last year? I got these highlights instead. I heard what sounded like Amber flipping her hair. The trick with Jodie, my mother explained, as if conducting a master class, is to always appeal to her guilt. One mention of how we supported her through college, and her wallet flies open. even though her scholarships covered almost everything Tyler added with a snicker. It's practically a science at this point, my mother continued proudly. We've trained her well. The conversation shifted to planning a family vacation to Florida, using the emergency fund I'd recently sent for what they'd claimed was a plumbing disaster. I finally found the strength to end the call, my hands shaking so badly. I nearly dropped the phone. The pasta water had long since boiled away, leaving a scorched pot on the stove. Much like my relationship with my family, burned beyond recognition. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I couldn't face video conferences and marketing presentations while my world was imploding. I spent that first day alternating between crying jags and fits of rage, throwing pillows against walls and screaming into them when the pain became too much to contain. By the second day, the shock had morphed into a hollow emptiness. I moved through my apartment like a ghost, replaying fragments of the overheard conversation in an endless loop. 7 years of sacrifice, of putting my family first, revealed as a cruel joke at my expense. On the third day, anger returned with a clarity that cut through the fog of betrayal. I sat down at my kitchen table with my laptop and began a systematic investigation of exactly how much I'd been manipulated. I pulled up 7 years of bank statements, credit card bills, and tax records. I created spreadsheets documenting every dollar sent to my family, categorizing each expense based on the reason given: mortgage payments, medical bills, car repairs, emergency funds. The numbers quickly became staggering. In total, I had given my family $175,812 over 7 years. The realization left me breathless. That was enough for a substantial down payment on a house, a master's degree, a year-long sabbatical to travel the world. All the dreams I had deferred to support a family that mocked me behind my back. Next, I turned to social media. I rarely checked my family's accounts, respecting what I thought was their simple private lifestyle. Now I scrolled through years of posts with new eyes. There was Tyler on a brand new fishing boat last summer, tagged at Lake Erie, purchased right after I'd sent $5,000 for emergency roof repairs. There was Amber at a beachfront resort in Florida during what was supposed to be a medical consultation trip I had funded. There were my parents at an extravagant anniversary dinner at the most expensive restaurant in the region, wearing new outfits and jewelry I'd never seen. I found photos of family gatherings I hadn't been invited to, home renovations I'd never been told about, and expensive purchases made shortly after I'd sent emergency money. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. My mother had joined a country club. My father had season tickets to football games. Tyler had upgraded his truck twice in 3 years. All while I pinched pennies in my small apartment, believing they were struggling. Desperate for confirmation that I wasn't overreacting, I drove the 2 hours to Oak Ridge the next day. I told myself I just wanted to drive by the house to see if there were visible signs of the prosperity they'd been hiding. I parked down the street, stunned to see a completely remodeled exterior with new siding windows and an expanded front porch with a swing, none of which had been mentioned to me despite our weekly phone calls. As I sat there processing this new betrayal, a tap on my window startled me. It was Hannah Peterson, my best friend from high school, who still lived in town. I hadn't seen her in over 2 years, not since my family had told me her wedding had been postponed, apparently another lie. "Jodie, what are you doing sitting out here?" she asked, genuinely surprised to see me. I rolled down the window, forcing a smile. Just passing through town, and thought I'd drive by the old house. "How are you, Hannah?" "I'm good. But why didn't you tell me you were coming to town? And why aren't you at your parents' house?" I wanted to surprise them, but looks like they're not home." Hannah looked confused. "They're definitely home. Their cars are in the driveway, and your mom's book club just ended an hour ago. I saw people leaving." My heart sank. They were home. They just weren't answering the door for unannounced visitors. "Jodie, is everything okay?" Hannah's concern seemed genuine. "Actually, I'm not sure," I admitted. "Can we grab coffee somewhere?" Over coffee at the local diner, Hannah unwittingly confirmed more of my family's deceptions. "I've missed seeing you at the town gatherings," she said. "Your mom always says you're too busy with work to visit even for big events." "What big events?" I asked, feeling sick. "You know the town's bicentennial celebration last year, the Christmas festival. Oh, and your parents' 30th anniversary party last month." It was beautiful. They rented out the entire country club ballroom. I nearly choked on my coffee. Their anniversary party, I wasn't even told about it. Hannah's eyes widened. "But your mom said you sent money for it but couldn't attend because of some big work project." I had indeed sent money. $5,000 for what I'd been told was Dad's new specialized back treatment. As we continued talking, Hannah mentioned seeing my family at restaurants, community events, and even a weekend trip to Atlantic City. Each casual reference was another dagger. My family had created an entirely different narrative about me to the community, painting me as too busy, too important, or too disconnected to participate in family functions. "Oh, I almost forgot," Hannah said, pulling out her phone. "I have pictures from your parents' anniversary party. They looked so happy." She handed me her phone, and I swiped through dozens of images showing my family celebrating lavishly. There was my mother in a designer dress. I'd never seen my father dancing energetically, despite his supposedly debilitating back injury, Amber and Tyler making toasts with champagne flutes. And not a single mention to me that this event was even happening. "Would you mind sending me these?" I asked, my voice hollow. "Of course. And hey, you should come to my place for dinner tonight. Brian would love to see you, and we can catch up properly." But I couldn't stay. The evidence was too overwhelming, the betrayal too fresh. I made an excuse about needing to get back to the city for work, and left the pictures from Hannah, now saved to my phone, as further documentation of my family's elaborate deception. On the drive back to Philadelphia, I made a decision. I would confront my family at our next Sunday dinner. I would ask direct questions and demand honest answers. Part of me still desperately wanted there to be an explanation, some misunderstanding that could salvage the relationship I thought we had. But deep down, I already knew the truth. The accidental phone call had simply revealed what had been there all along. A family who saw me not as a beloved daughter and sister, but as a convenient source of income to fund the lifestyle they felt entitled to. The following Sunday, I arrived at my parents' house for our weekly dinner with a knot in my stomach and a folder of financial records in my bag. I'd spent the week rehearsing what I would say, practicing calm questions that would give my family the chance to explain themselves. The moment I pulled into the driveway, I noticed new landscaping and a recently paved driveway, more improvements never mentioned during our frequent calls. Taking a deep breath, I reminded myself to start the conversation neutrally to avoid accusations until I heard their side. Jodie. My mother greeted me with her usual enthusiasm, pulling me into a hug. "We missed you last week." "The house looks different," I said carefully. "New landscaping." "Oh, just a few flowers and bushes," she dismissed casually. "Nothing special. Come in. Dinner's almost ready." Inside, the changes were even more apparent. New furniture, fresh paint, updated lighting fixtures, and a large flat-screen TV that certainly hadn't been there during my Christmas visit. The minor kitchen update they'd mentioned last year had actually been a complete renovation with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances. My father was lounging in a new recliner watching golf on the massive TV. He made a show of struggling to stand when he saw me wincing dramatically. "Hey, kiddo," he said, giving me a one-armed hug, while his other hand remained on his lower back. "Back's giving me fits today." I noticed he had no problem sitting back down or reaching for his beer on the side table. Amber and Tyler were already at the dining table with their spouses. Tyler immediately launched into a story about his difficult boss and the possibility of needing to find a new job soon, a transparent setup for requesting more financial help. Throughout dinner, I observed my family with new eyes. The designer clothes they wore casually, my mother's new diamond earrings, the expensive bourbon my father poured freely. None of it aligned with the struggling family narrative they'd maintained for years. Finally, during dessert, I found my opening. "So, I was reviewing my finances recently. I began carefully, and realized I've been sending quite a lot of money here over the years. I'm curious how the mortgage payments are going. How much is left on the loan? An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. My mother recovered first. Oh, Jodie, you know how boring financial talk is during family time. We can discuss that another day. Actually, I'd really like to know now, I pressed. I've been making those payments for 7 years. My parents exchanged glances. The thing is, sweetie, my father said slowly, with the variable interest rates and some refinancing we did, it's complicated. I'm good with complicated, I insisted. In fact, I brought some notes. I pulled the folder from my bag. What's this about, Jodie, my mother asked sharply. Are you keeping tabs on us now? I'm just trying to understand where my money has been going, I said, struggling to keep my voice even. For instance, I sent $5,000 last month for Dad's back treatment. But Hannah showed me pictures from your anniversary party at the country club that same weekend. Another silence, heavier this time. You're in contact with Hannah, my mother asked, completely ignoring the actual issue. I ran into her when I drove through town last week. You were in town and didn't visit us. My mother's voice rose dramatically, tears suddenly appearing in her eyes. After all we've done for you. The deflection was so transparent. It would have been laughable if it weren't so painful. Mom, please answer my question about the money. I can't believe you're bean counting what you give your family, she said, dabbing at her eyes. We raised you, put you through college, supported your move to the city, and this is the thanks we get interrogation at the dinner table. My father suddenly groaned and clutched his back. I need my medication. Tyler, help me to the medicine cabinet. As Tyler assisted our suddenly incapacitated father, I turned to Amber. Did you accidentally call me last Sunday during dinner? Her eyes widened momentarily before narrowing. What are you talking about? I received a call from your phone. No one spoke, but I could hear everyone talking. Amber's face flushed red. Are you spying on us now? Recording our private conversations. That's illegal, you know. I didn't record anything. You called me by accident. So you eavesdropped, instead of hanging up. That says a lot about how much you trust your family, Jodie. The rapid transformation from guilt to accusation left me momentarily speechless. In the pause, Tyler returned without our father. Dad's lying down. His pain is really bad tonight, he announced, giving me a reproachful look. Convenient timing, I muttered. What is wrong with you tonight? Tyler snapped. Dad's in serious pain and you're acting like he's faking. I took a deep breath. According to what I heard on that phone call, he's been cleared for light work since 2022. Is that true? My mother stood abruptly. I will not have you accusing your father this way. He's suffered enough without his own daughter calling him a liar. I just want honest answers, I insisted. About the mortgage payments, about Grandma Jenkins' inheritance, about all of it? Inheritance, Tyler interjected with forced confusion. Grandma left everything to the church. Everyone knows that. Stop lying. I finally snapped, my carefully planned, calm approach crumbling. I heard all of you last Sunday. I heard Mom say Grandma left each of you $10,000. I heard about Amber working full-time while telling me she can't find work. I heard about the vacations, the boat, all of it. The room fell silent again, but this time with a different quality. My family exchanged glances, some kind of unspoken communication passing between them. My mother sat back down, her demeanor shifting entirely. The tears vanished as quickly as they had appeared. Jodie, I think you're under a lot of stress from work. Maybe you should talk to someone professional about these delusions. Delusions, I repeated incredulously. We're worried about you, Amber added, reaching for my hand with exaggerated concern. These accusations, this paranoia. It's not like you. I pulled my hand away. Don't gaslight me. I know what I heard. Look, Tyler said with forced reasonableness. We all appreciate what you do for the family. No one's denying that. But these conspiracy theories are concerning. I looked from face to face, stunned by how quickly they had united to make me the problem rather than addressing their deception. Actually, Tyler continued, his tone brightening artificially. I have some good news that might cheer you up. I'm finally quitting that toxic warehouse job. My manager's been treating me terribly, and with your promotion, the timing seemed right. The audacity was breathtaking. Congratulations, I said flatly. How do you plan to pay your bills? He laughed as if I'd said something ridiculous. Well, family helps family, right? Just temporarily until I find something better. Before I could respond, my mother clapped her hands together. Speaking of good news, we're finally getting that kitchen renovation we've been talking about for years. You just renovated the kitchen, I pointed out, gesturing to the gleaming new appliances surrounding us. No, that was just phase 1, she said dismissively. Phase 2 is the custom cabinetry and extended island. The contractor needs a $15,000 deposit next week. The expectation in her voice was unmistakable. 7 years of conditioning had taught her that I would simply nod and write a check. The realization of how predictable they found me, how certain of my compliance, was humiliating. I have news too, Amber announced, grinning widely. I'm pregnant, due in February. Despite everything, I felt a momentary flutter of genuine joy. That's wonderful, Amber. Congratulations. Thanks. And obviously, we'll need to convert the guest room into a nursery. Mom and Dad are going to help with the construction costs, but we'll need your help with the furniture and baby supplies. And there it was. Another request wrapped in an announcement, the expectation of my financial support stated as a foregone conclusion. As the meal concluded, my mother handed me a neatly typed list titled Upcoming Family Expenses. We thought it would be easier to keep track this way, she explained casually. With your new promotion, we figured we should organize the increased contributions. I stared at the list in disbelief. New car for Tyler. Private preschool fund for Amber's unborn child. Country club membership fees. Vacation timeshare down payment. Kitchen renovation. In total, they were expecting over $40,000 from me in the next 6 months alone. I'll need to think about this, I said, folding the paper and putting it in my pocket. Think about it, my mother repeated as if the concept was foreign. What's there to think about? You've always said family comes first. And I meant it, I replied quietly. But I'm not sure we have the same definition of family anymore. I left soon after, their demands and deflections still ringing in my ears. The confrontation had failed spectacularly, but it had confirmed everything I feared. There would be no explanation that made this right. No misunderstanding to clear up. My family had been exploiting me deliberately and systematically for years, and they had no intention of stopping. As I drove back to Philadelphia, I knew what I needed to do. The time for questions and clarifications was over. Now I needed a plan to extricate myself from this toxic financial relationship without completely destroying myself in the process. The Monday after the failed family dinner, I requested a personal day from work and made 2 important appointments, one with a financial advisor and another with a therapist specializing in family trauma. Jessica Chen, the financial advisor, reviewed the documents I'd compiled with growing concern. Jodie, I've seen cases of adult children supporting parents before, but this is extreme, she said, gesturing to my spreadsheets. You're not just helping with necessities. You're funding an upper-middle-class lifestyle for 5 adults. 6 now, I corrected bitterly. My sister's pregnant. Jessica sighed. The financial abuse here is clear. They've systematically extracted resources from you under false pretenses. In a normal family support situation, there's transparency, gratitude, and usually some end goal. This has none of those elements. Financial abuse. I repeated the term simultaneously. Painful and validating. I never thought of it that way. It absolutely is. And it's preventing you from building your own financial security. She pulled up a projection of my retirement savings compared to others my age. The gap was substantial. If you continue at this rate, you'll need to work well into your 70s before retirement is feasible, she explained gently. Meanwhile, your family members will likely have comfortable retirements funded largely by you. The injustice burned. What should I do? Jessica helped me create a comprehensive financial exit strategy. First, I would immediately stop all automatic payments and remove my family's access to my accounts. Then I would redirect those funds into catching up on my own financial goals, emergency savings, retirement contributions, and eventually a down payment for a home. They'll push back hard, she warned. Be prepared for emotional manipulation, guilt trips, and possibly even threats. People rarely give up a steady income source without a fight. That afternoon, Dr. Landon, the therapist, helped me understand the emotional dynamics at play. What you're describing is a classic case of family exploitation, he explained. The saddest part is that they've conditioned you to believe that your value to them is primarily financial. I thought I was helping, I said, tears forming. I thought I was being a good daughter. You were. They took advantage of your compassion and sense of family obligation. But supporting them financially isn't the same as having a healthy relationship. Every time I think about confronting them again, I feel physically ill, I admitted. That's a normal response to anticipating conflict with family, he assured me. But continuing this pattern will only harm you more in the long run. Dr. Landon suggested strategies for setting boundaries, preparing for the emotional fallout, and recognizing manipulation tactics. He also recommended documenting all interactions going forward. Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state for recording, he mentioned. You might consider recording important conversations to prevent gaslighting later. Armed with professional advice, I spent the next 2 weeks methodically preparing for financial separation. I opened new accounts at different banks. I documented every transaction I could find related to family support. I recorded phone conversations with family members discussing money, capturing their casual entitlement, and occasional slips that confirmed their deception. During this time, I received a surprising call from my father's sister, Aunt Deborah, whom I hadn't spoken to in years. My parents had always described her as bitter and jealous, someone who had unfairly distanced herself from the family. Jodie, honey, I heard from Hannah Peterson that you were asking questions about your parents' finances, she began cautiously. Is everything okay? I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. I'm just trying to get a clearer picture of things. I've been worried this day might come, she sighed. Your parents did the same thing to my mother, your grandmother, before they started on you. What do you mean? They convinced Mom that they needed help with medical bills, home repairs, all sorts of emergencies. She remortgaged her house twice to help them. When she finally realized what was happening and tried to stop, they cut her off completely. Wouldn't let her see the grandkids, told everyone she was mentally unstable. The pattern was chillingly familiar. Why didn't you ever tell me? I asked. I tried years ago when you first started supporting them after your father's accident. You were so certain they needed your help, and they had already poisoned you against me. You told me I was bitter and jealous, just like they said. I vaguely remembered the conversation and felt ashamed at how easily I had dismissed her concerns. I'm sorry I didn't listen, I said quietly. Don't be sorry, be smart, she advised. Get out now before they take everything. Another unexpected ally emerged when Meg Tyler's wife called me privately one evening. Jodie, I can't talk long. Tyler's at his poker game, she began nervously. I need you to know I've felt horrible about this for years. About what exactly? I asked, recording the call with the app Dr. Landon had recommended. The way your family talks about you when you're not around. The way they plan how to get more money from you. It's wrong, and I've said so, but they don't listen to me. Has Tyler said anything about me asking questions at dinner last week? Meg hesitated. They're all saying you had some kind of breakdown, that you're paranoid and ungrateful. But I was there when Amber accidentally called you. I heard what everyone said. So it really happened, I'm not imagining things. No, you're not imagining anything. Amber realized she'd called you about 10 minutes into the conversation. She showed everyone her phone screen, but your mother said to keep talking, that you'd probably hung up already. The confirmation sent a wave of both relief and renewed pain through me. Does Tyler know you're calling me? No, and he can't find out. But I couldn't let you think you were crazy. What they're doing to you isn't right. They have money, Jodie. Your parents have savings. That boat Tyler bought, it cost $28,000. All while you're living in that tiny apartment, sending them every extra penny. After these conversations, I continued gathering evidence methodically. I obtained property tax records, showing the increased value of my parents' home after undisclosed renovations. I collected social media posts documenting expensive purchases and vacations that coincided with emergency fund requests. I even found an online announcement for my parents' anniversary party that specifically thanked anonymous donors for making the celebration possible. I also discovered my father had been working part-time as a consultant for a construction company for over 3 years, information that had been deliberately kept from me while I continued sending money to supplement his supposedly non-existent income. By the end of those 2 weeks, I had accumulated irrefutable evidence of years of systematic deception. With Jessica's help, I had closed joint accounts, opened new ones, and stopped all automatic payments. I had consulted with Dr. Landon about maintaining my emotional health through the coming confrontation. I was as prepared as I could be, but still the thought of the final confrontation filled me with dread. These were the people who had raised me, who I had loved and trusted completely. Regardless of their betrayal, cutting financial ties would fundamentally change our relationship forever. The mortgage payment was scheduled to process in 3 days. For 7 years, that payment had gone through automatically on the 15th of each month, regardless of my own financial circumstances. This month would be different. This month, the payment would bounce, serving as the opening statement in a confrontation that couldn't be deflected or manipulated away. I set a date for the final family meeting, sending a group text asking everyone to be present at my parents' house that Saturday. Important family financial discussion, I wrote simply. Everyone needs to be there. The responses came quickly, ranging from my mother's concerned, "Is everything okay, sweetie?" to Tyler's blunt, "Can you bring the check for my car payment? It's due Monday." I didn't respond to any of them. There was nothing left to say until we were face to face with all the evidence laid bare between us. Saturday morning dawned crisp and clear, the kind of perfect autumn day that usually lifted my spirits. Today, it felt like a stark contrast to the storm I was about to walk into. I dressed carefully in professional attire, the same outfit I wore to important client presentations. I needed the confidence it gave me. I arrived at my parents' house exactly at 10, carrying a briefcase filled with documents, recordings, and financial records. Through the window, I could see my entire family already gathered in the living room, faces tense with anticipation. My mother opened the door before I could knock. "Jodie, you had us worried sick with that cryptic message. What's going on?" I stepped inside without returning her hug. "I think it's best if we all sit down together." The living room fell silent as I entered. My father in his recliner, looking concerned but not in any apparent pain. Amber and her husband on the love seat. Tyler and Meg on the sofa, with Meg avoiding my eyes. "Well, don't keep us in suspense," my father said with forced joviality. "What's this big financial discussion?" I placed my briefcase on the coffee table and took a deep breath. The mortgage payment bounced on Thursday. A beat of shocked silence followed. "What do you mean bounced?" my mother asked, her voice rising. "That's automatic." "It was automatic," I corrected. "I closed that account last week." "You did?" what my father exclaimed, sitting forward. "Jodie, people rely on that payment." "I know. You've relied on it for 7 years, along with the utilities, the car payments, the cell phone bills, and the monthly emergency funds. If this is about the additional money we discussed," my mother began placatingly, "we can certainly adjust those numbers." "This isn't a negotiation," I interrupted. "I've stopped all payments permanently." The room erupted in protests, everyone talking over each other, until my father's voice cut through the chaos. "You can't just cut us off without warning. We have commitments, bills due." His face had turned an alarming shade of red. "Exactly how I felt when I discovered you've been lying to me for years." I opened my briefcase and pulled out the first stack of documents. "These are records of every payment I've made to this family over the past 7 years. $175,000, $812 in total. I laid the papers on the coffee table. No one reached for them. We never asked for an accounting, my mother said coldly. Family helps family. That's what we do. Except I'm the only one doing the helping, and you've all been lying about what the money was for. I pulled out more documents. Here's the workers' compensation records, showing Dad was cleared for light-duty work 3 years ago, while continuing to tell me he couldn't work. Here are the property tax records showing home improvements never mentioned to me. Here are social media posts showing vacations, purchases, and events that coincided with emergency fund requests. My father shifted uncomfortably. You're taking things out of context. Am I? Then let's add some context. I pulled out my phone and played the first recording, a conversation from last week where my mother detailed to Amber how to phrase requests to ensure my compliance. We just need to mention how tight things are, how your father's back is acting up again, and she'll send extra. My mother's voice rang clearly through the speaker. Works every time. I stopped the recording and looked at their stunned faces. I have dozens more like that. But the most important one is this. I played a portion of the accidental call that had started everything, where they mocked me as their ATM with legs and laughed about raising the rent by $250. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. You recorded us without permission, Amber finally said, her voice shaking with anger. That's illegal. Actually, Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state for recording. Completely legal. I looked directly at her. And you called me. Remember? I just stayed on the line. So what now? My father demanded. You ambush us with recordings, embarrass everyone, and then what? What exactly do you want, Jodie? I want the truth. For once, I want honesty from my family. More silence followed, heavy, with unspoken calculations. They were weighing options, I realized, trying to determine if further denial was possible or if a new strategy was needed. My mother broke first, her demeanor shifting subtly. The defensive anger melted into resigned practicality. Fine. Yes, we've taken advantage of your generosity, she admitted, her voice steady. But families are complicated. We needed help, you could provide it. Perhaps we weren't always transparent about the extent of our needs versus our wants. That's not even close to the whole truth, I insisted. She sighed heavily. What do you want me to say? That we enjoyed the lifestyle your money provided? That it became easy to ask for more when you never questioned anything? That we sometimes laughed about how willing you were to send money? Yes, all those things are true. Linda, my father, cautioned, but she waved him off. She has the recordings, Frank. There's no point pretending anymore. She turned back to me. We're not monsters, Jodie. We love you. But yes, we took advantage of your success and your guilt about leaving home. And Dad's injury? Was that ever real? My father at least had the decency to look ashamed. The initial injury was real. The ongoing disability wasn't. I could have returned to modified work years ago, but the money from you was better than what I'd make part-time. And Grandma's inheritance? She left each of us $10,000, my mother confirmed. We didn't tell you because we knew you'd ask why you weren't included. The truth is, she was angry that you moved away to Philadelphia instead of staying to help with the family business. There was no family business. The construction company Frank's brother started. She wanted you to do their accounting. This was news to me, a job opportunity I'd never even been told about. Tyler spoke up, his tone defensive. Look, we never forced you to send money. You offered, and we accepted. That's not a crime. Lying about what it was for is basically fraud, I countered. So now we're criminals, Amber interjected tearfully, her hand on her stomach. You're calling your family criminals because we accepted your help. Stop it, Amber Meg said unexpectedly, her voice quiet but firm. Just stop. You know exactly what Jodie means. All eyes turned to Meg in surprise. Meg, this isn't your business, Tyler warned. I've watched this happen for years, she continued, ignoring her husband. I've listened to all of you plan how to extract more money from Jodie while laughing about her behind her back. I've sat through dinners where you've deliberately played up hardships that don't exist. It's wrong and you all know it. Whose side are you on? Tyler demanded. The side of basic human decency, Meg replied, moving to sit next to me. Jodie deserves better from her family. The unexpected allyship gave me strength. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steadier now. The financial support is over, permanently. No more mortgage payments, no more bills, no more emergency funds. You all have jobs, savings, and assets. You'll figure it out just like every other financially independent adult. You can't just cut us off completely, my father protested. We have commitments based on the understanding that you would continue to help. Commitments. Like what? The kitchen renovation. The boat payments. The country club membership. I shook my head. Those aren't necessities, and they're not my responsibility. What about family loyalty? My mother demanded. After everything we've done for you, family loyalty works both ways. You haven't shown me any. So that's it? Amber asked bitterly. You're abandoning your family when we need you most, when I have a baby on the way. You and Jeff both work full-time jobs that you've hidden from me while claiming poverty. You'll be fine. My mother's tactics shifted again, tears now streaming down her face. We made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But we're still your family, your blood. If you cut us off now, you'll regret it forever. Is money really worth destroying your family over? This isn't about money, I said firmly. It's about trust, respect, and honesty, none of which you've shown me. And if we refuse to have a relationship with you unless you reconsider, my father asked, the threat explicit. The question hurt, but I'd prepared for it. Then that's your choice. I'm not the one putting a price tag on our relationship. Tyler stood up angrily. This is ridiculous. You're seriously going to let the mortgage payment bounce? Where are Mom and Dad supposed to live? Where am I supposed to get the money for my car payment due Monday? The same place everyone else gets it, from working and budgeting. After everything we've done for you, my mother repeated, her voice rising dramatically. We raised you, fed you, clothed you, supported you through college. My scholarships paid for college, I corrected. And yes, you raised me as parents are supposed to do. That doesn't entitle you to a lifetime of financial support under false pretenses. If you walk out that door without fixing the mortgage payment, my father said slowly, don't bother coming back. Ever. The ultimatum hung in the air. 7 years ago, it would have devastated me enough to immediately comply. Today, it only confirmed that I was making the right decision. That's your choice, I repeated quietly. I gathered my documents and stood up. I've transferred enough money to cover this month's mortgage as a final payment. What you do after that is up to you. And that's it. 7 years of support, and you're done, Amber asked incredulously. I've given you $175,000 under false pretenses. I think that's more than generous. I moved toward the door, Meg beside me. Meg, if you leave with her, don't come back either, Tyler threatened. Meg hesitated only briefly before responding. I'll get my things tomorrow. As we reached the door, my mother made one final attempt. Jodie, please. We can work this out. We'll be more transparent about the finances. We'll pay you back eventually. I turned back one last time. I would have helped you even if you'd been honest. I would have given what I could afford if you'd just respected me enough to tell the truth. But you chose exploitation over honesty, and that's something I can't forgive right now. So, this is goodbye, my mother asked, tears still streaming. This is me finally respecting myself enough to walk away from people who don't value me beyond what I can give them. I walked out the door with Meg beside me, leaving behind the stunned silence of a family suddenly facing the consequences of years of deception. 6 months can change everything. That's what I've learned since the day I walked out of my parents' house with nothing but uncertainty ahead of me. The first month was the hardest. My phone buzzed constantly with texts and calls ranging from tearful apologies to vicious accusations. My mother left voicemails describing their impending financial ruin. My father sent emails detailing the stress I had caused his back condition to worsen. Amber texted ultrasound pictures with guilt-laden messages about her unborn child never knowing her aunt. Tyler vacillated between angry threats and awkward attempts at reconciliation that always circled back to requests for just one more loan. I blocked their numbers after the first 2 weeks, keeping only email open as a necessary channel for any truly important communication. The sudden silence was both a relief and a new kind of pain, the finality of the rift I'd created. Meg moved in with me temporarily while she figured out her next steps. She filed for divorce from Tyler after he refused counseling and continued to pressure her to fix things with me. Having her around made the transition easier, a connection to my old life that validated my decision rather than undermining it. "They're still talking about you like you'll come back eventually," she told me one evening over dinner in my apartment. "They don't believe you're really done." "What about the mortgage payment?" I asked. I'd promised myself not to check whether they'd made it on their own. "Your parents downsized to a smaller house last month. Turns out they had enough equity to buy something modest outright," she smiled wryly. "They're telling everyone it was their choice to simplify their lives." I wasn't surprised by the spin, but I was relieved they hadn't ended up homeless, as they'd threatened. With each passing month, the weight on my shoulders lightened. My savings account grew. I started taking the photography classes I'd postponed for years. I even put a deposit down on a small condo closer to my office. My first real estate purchase at 33. Dr. Landon continued to help me process the complicated grief of losing my family while they were still alive. "You're mourning the family you thought you had," he explained during one session. "The one that existed in your mind, not the one that existed in reality." That framing helped me understand why I still missed them, despite their betrayal. I missed the mother I thought had my best interests at heart. The father I believed was proud of me beyond my financial contributions. The siblings I imagined were my allies. 4 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected email from my brother Tyler. Unlike his previous messages, this one contained no requests or guilt trips. "I've been doing some hard thinking since Meg left," he wrote. "I didn't want to admit how wrong we all were. It was easier to blame you than look at myself. But I'm trying to take responsibility now. I found a full-time job at the lumber yard. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. I've started counseling too. I don't expect your forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm trying to be better." I read the message several times, searching for the hidden angle, the subtle manipulation. Finding none, I eventually replied with simple acknowledgement and cautious encouragement of his therapy journey. His response was equally measured. No immediate push for reconciliation or financial help, just gratitude that I had responded at all. Over the following weeks, our email exchanges continued, carefully circling the damage done without reopening wounds. He shared his struggles with finding financial independence after years of dependence. I offered occasional advice, but no money. It wasn't friendship or even true siblinghood yet, but it was something authentic, beginning to grow in the ashes of our former relationship. 5 months after the confrontation, I learned through Tyler that my father had returned to work part-time as a construction site supervisor. My mother had taken extra hours at the school teaching summer programs she'd previously considered beneath her. Amber had delivered a healthy baby boy and was working remotely as a customer service representative, while her husband increased his hours at the insurance agency. They were surviving without me, adapting to financial reality like the capable adults they had always been beneath their practiced helplessness. This knowledge brought me profound relief. I hadn't destroyed them by withdrawing support. I'd merely forced them to tap into resources they'd always possessed but chosen not to use. 6 months to the day after our confrontation, I received a letter in the mail, an actual paper letter with my mother's distinctive handwriting on the envelope. Inside was a check for $1,000 and a brief note. "This is the first repayment. It's not much compared to what we took, but it's what we can afford right now. We plan to send something each month, no strings attached. No expectations of reconciliation unless you want it someday. We're sorry. We were wrong, Mom." I sat with the letter for a long time, surprised by the tears that came. Not from the money, which was indeed a tiny fraction of what they'd taken, but from the acknowledgement. The admission of wrongdoing without qualification or excuse. The respect for my boundaries. I deposited the check the next day and sent a brief email acknowledgement. I wasn't ready for more, but I no longer felt the need to maintain complete silence either. The following Sunday, what would have been our regular family dinner day, I invited Tyler and Meg, who had remained friends despite their divorce, to my new condo for a simple meal. As we sat together talking about our lives and carefully navigating around still tender family topics, I felt something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but a loosening of the anger that had gripped me for so long. "Have you thought about seeing Mom and Dad?" Tyler asked carefully as we finished dessert. Sometimes I admitted, "But I'm not ready for regular contact." He nodded. "They ask about you. Not about money anymore, just about how you're doing." "That's progress," I said with a small smile. "Would you consider meeting them somewhere neutral? Maybe just for coffee?" "They've changed, Jodie. Or they're trying to, anyway." I considered the question seriously. Maybe someday. But not yet. I'm still building my own life, figuring out who I am, without the financial burden, and without the identity of being the family provider. "That makes sense," he acknowledged. "For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. For standing up for yourself, even though it meant standing against us." His words touched something deep inside me. The simple acknowledgement I'd always craved from my family, finally offered without manipulation or agenda. Later that month, I used some of my newfound financial freedom to fulfill a long-deferred dream, a 2-week photography workshop in Montana's Glacier National Park. Standing among the towering mountains, capturing the play of light across ancient ice, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. On my last evening there, I called my Aunt Deborah, who had been a steadfast supporter throughout my journey. "I've been thinking about something," I told her after updating her on my life. "I want to start a small foundation to help people trapped in financially abusive family situations. Nothing huge, just resources, counseling referrals, maybe small grants to help people get on their feet when they break free." "That sounds wonderful," she said warmly. "Your grandmother would be so proud." "Would you consider being on the advisory board?" I asked. "Your experience could help others recognize the signs earlier than I did." "I'd be honored," she replied, without hesitation. "The foundation is still in its planning stages, but it gives purpose to my experience. The pain of betrayal by my family may never completely heal, but it has transformed into something meaningful, wisdom, I can share with others facing similar struggles." Last week, I received another email from my mother, informing me that they were hosting a small Thanksgiving gathering. "No pressure," she wrote, "but there will be a place for you if you want to come. Just you. No financial discussions, no expectations. Just family if you're ready to try." I haven't decided yet if I'll go. Part of me still fears the pull of old patterns, the subtle manipulation that might lie beneath the surface of their apparent change. But another part recognizes that people can learn and grow from consequences. End quote. That my family's transformation might be genuine if incomplete. What I know for certain is that I'll make the decision based on what's healthy for me, not out of guilt or obligation. The young woman who once believed her worth was measured by her financial contributions to her family is gone. In her place stands someone stronger, wiser, and unwilling to accept less than the respect and honesty she deserves. When my mother called yesterday, I answered for the first time in 6 months. Our conversation was brief and somewhat awkward, but refreshingly free of financial subtext. "I'm sorry," she said simply, "for everything." "I know," I replied. "I'm still working on forgiveness." "Take all the time you need," she said. "We'll be here." It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. Those only happen in movies. It was messy and uncertain, like all real human relationships. But it was honest, and that's the foundation I need if any relationship with my family is to continue. As I sit in my new condo, surrounded by my photography equipment and plans for the foundation, I realized that the accidental phone call that revealed my family's betrayal wasn't the catastrophe it first seemed. It was painful, yes, but also necessary, the catalyst that forced me to recognize my own worth beyond what I could provide for others. Sometimes the most painful revelations lead to the most profound growth. Sometimes we need to let payments bounce to discover where true value lies. Have you ever had to make a difficult decision about family relationships and money? Where do you draw the line between helping loved ones and enabling harmful patterns? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more content about setting healthy boundaries and building authentic relationships. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to prioritize their own well-being. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, the most important investment you'll ever make is in your own self-worth.